In this video, I'm going to teach you how to create a storyboard for your portfolio, how to gather files to place in your portfolio, how to select pages from your InDesign template, and how to create text to incorporate into your portfolio. And so what you're going to see now is my planning process for when I am trying to assemble a portfolio using an InDesign template when I have a lot of different projects that I need to think about. And so the first thing that you're seeing here is a storyboard. Now, there's a lot of very sophisticated storyboard techniques out there, but I use a very simple one, which is I just print out or I grab a piece of just white computer paper and I start to sketch the things that I want to place on a page of my portfolio that are related to the assignment or the project. Now, if you look at this, you can see that I have a title that this page is going to be focused on the Georgian interior. I know that there's going to need to be some text here that's going to inform the viewer about the scope of this project and my design intent. But I'm also starting to think about the drawings that I need to gather for this portfolio page. Now, even though you can look at this and say, and perhaps think that I'm starting to think about graphic design just a little bit in the placement, I know that I've selected InDesign pages from a template later that are more interesting probably than this layout. And I'm not necessarily tied to the graphics yet. Right now, I'm just trying to think about what documents and images I need to gather and kind of the relative size and shape of these objects as they relate to each other once they're on an InDesign page. And, you know, what I want to present kind of near other drawings, if that makes sense. So you can see here, I know as I'm starting to create a portfolio page that relates to this Georgian interior, not only do I need to gather or write assignment text, I also need to make sure that I have my two visual references selected for files. I need to make sure that I've got scans of the exterior elevations, and then I need to make sure I've got that presentation drawing of the elevation, and that's what I'm calling out on this sheet. You can see the next one as well. This is for the Georgian interior. And again, I'm not thinking necessarily about graphic design of my portfolio page yet. I'm just trying to organize my drawings, make sure that I am thinking about the drawings that I'm going to include, how they might relate to each other on this page, and you know, the relative sizes of these drawings as they relate to each other. And so once again here, I need my visual reference. I know I've got two options that I created for this Georgian interior, that for each of those options, I've got a sketch of an elevation and the floor plan that I need to think about and keep close to each other on the page. And then I also, of course, have these really beautiful presentation drawings that I want to present big and I want to draw my viewer's eye to in some unique way. And then, of course, I've got some swatches that I'm going to have to incorporate as well. So this is a very preliminary storyboard that gets me thinking about how this is going to feel and gets me thinking about the organization of the drawings and related information to this portfolio. So now that I have this very rudimentary storyboard created, now I have to start to gather these files. And so what you're seeing now here is a screenshot of my filing system. Now, this is within my computer itself, and I'm going to pause for a second and just show you in person. Here you can see a better view of it. Now, if you recall, way back when you learned InDesign, remember that InDesign is a software that focuses on page layout. And in order to keep the InDesign file small, InDesign doesn't embed the images within the InDesign file. InDesign links to a place on your portfolio or on your computer where all of the files in your portfolio live. And so it's really important as you're starting to think about a portfolio layout in InDesign that you gather all of the files that you're going to need and that you're going to be working with, and you put them all into a single file called links. And you can see that's what I have here. And so even though these things, these images and things might be in other places on my computer, I have copy and pasted all of those into this single folder. And that means that InDesign will know exactly where my images are. And even if I move or change things in other places on my computer, InDesign still knows that this is the folder where all the links are that relate to this particular template. So that's what you have to do when you gather files to place in your portfolio. You look at your storyboard, you figure out all the drawings and images that you need to include or that you think you're going to include, and then you copy and paste all of them into this single folder so that they're ready to start to place into InDesign. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is how to select pages from your InDesign template. Now, I looked at my InDesign template a long time ago and decided what pages I thought would work really well for my layout. And so I'm going to show you those right now. You can see these are the pages from my InDesign template that I selected earlier in the course. When I looked at things and decided this is the template that would work for me, and these are some of the pages that I think would work well. And so I've saved these, and this is what I'm starting to think about as I'm creating those pages within my portfolio. Okay, so we've got that one. There's another one here. Let me pause and show it to you. This was another one that I liked that was perhaps something that I could use to express lots of different drawings and show lots of different drawings for a design project. And you can see it's got some placeholder things in it from the InDesign template, but I liked the possibility of using something like this to present some big drawings and then some smaller drawings. And then here's the last one that I had selected. And so I'm starting to think about all those drawings, what I need to present next to what, I'm gathering the document files, and I'm starting to think about now how they're going to find their way from my very rudimentary design in my storyboard into my InDesign template. And so now that I have those parts and pieces together, the next thing I need to do is to create the text to incorporate into my portfolio. Now, as I have mentioned to you in the past, and I'll remind you again here, InDesign does not have a great function for spell checking and for catching errors, whether they're grammatical or typo. InDesign, it's a kind of a difficult keystroke to get InDesign to think at that level. And so what I always recommend that students do is to create a Word document that has the text that they want to include in their project. And so when you look at an InDesign template like this, and you think about the images and drawings and things that you're going to incorporate, you need to think about what kind of text you need. Are you going to have an overview text about the project where you incorporate some of that conceptual information, client and scope information that we've discussed in the past? Do you need particular information about, like, as you can see here, you'd have a large image and then you'd have a caption down here that you need to write. Maybe if you're thinking about, swatches and you've got something you want to tell your viewer about the selection of the swatches, maybe you need to think about the text that goes here. So it's really just the job of the designer in this very early stage to think about what images you're going to include and what text you might need to incorporate, and if you want to separate those different text boxes. And then you start to write the text, because again, you don't want to be composing your text in InDesign. And I will show you what I mean right now. So this is my Word document that I've created for this portfolio project that I'm working on. And you can see here that I've got a list of the files that I need and the files that I'm going to need to provide both for the portfolio, whether it's background information, background images, and then the images that I've created. But what I want you to focus on right now is this part right here. This is the support text. So this is just a Word document where I'm starting to think about all of the drawings and all of the text and what I want to express in my template and when. And I'm writing this in Word so that anytime there's errors, I can see them here. If there's an extra space, if there's perhaps a word that needs to be capitalized, it isn't, or if I duplicate a word and I don't catch it because I'm, focused too much on conveying my design intent, that Word will catch these errors. And then later on, when I put it in InDesign, I don't have to worry about, having InDesign do my spell checking. I know that it's been checked in Word and that it's correct. So now the very first thing you do before you even start to design that template and really start to bring files in, you have to begin by pre-planning. So first you create that storyboard where you think about what drawings you need to incorporate, where and how, what needs to be next to each other, what you need to gather and where you need to place them on your computers, that you have a folder full of links. What pages in your InDesign template you want to focus on and use to convey this project, and how to create text to incorporate into this portfolio so that you know that you're not going to have any typos. And that's how you do it.